I want to say that if a thief steals from you and you happen to see this thief with your gadget, will you beg? Will you ask nicely? Or you will forcibly get your gadget from the thief?
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
You only need to take your thing, and that is what we did. Our land was taken forcibly. It was dispossessed from our people unfairly, unjustly, and so many atrocities took place during that particular time, and we had to take our land, and that's what we did. And for anyone to begrudge us for that, I think it would be very unfair. But we want to thank the African Union and the SADC region and Africa in general for standing with Zimbabwe at this particular time. You will recall that sometime in 2019, during a SADC conference, a SADC summit, they came together and came up with the 25th of October as a day where countries in the SADC region and on Africa as a whole should stand by Zimbabwe to call for the lifting of the sanctions. That solidarity amongst nations is important. We have seen it even in the recent past, where we have seen the president of South Africa, the president of Botswana, and many other presidents are on the continent speaking against the sanctions that were imposed on Zimbabwe and Sudan and calling for these sanctions to be removed. That collective voice, that unanimity amongst the nations on Africa to say this we do not want. Let African problems be solved by Africans, because African problems require African solutions. Likewise, the Zimbabwean solutions requires Zimbabwean solutions. And there are people within the region like South Africa, Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi, which are neighbors to Zimbabwe. They have felt the impact of the sanctions because ordinarily the majority of the people that have left Zimbabwe, they've gone to these countries. They can speak with authority on the impact of the sanctions, and they can speak on authority on what has happened in Zimbabwe. So we need to strengthen institutions in the regional blocks and or regional organizations. And we need to strengthen institutions on the African continent, such as the African Union, so that it has teeth, it has a voice that can be heard, a voice which, when they speak at the United Nations, they should be able to be heard. Be it the chairperson of the African Union, when he speaks, should speak for all African countries. One of the things why it has been very difficult, according to my thinking, for African countries to be heard, it is because when we go to the United Nations, we go as individuals. We go as Zimbabwe, Malawi goes as Malawi, Botswana as Botswana, and so on and so on. Yet we are coming from the same continent. We should be able to come up with one message that speaks to the interests and aspirations and the vision of the people on the continent of Africa. When we do so, when we speak with one voice, other countries such as America will take us seriously. But when we go and represent ourselves as individuals, well, we will be treated as individuals, and they are likely to connive with certain countries so that we do not have that unanimity, we do not have that strength that we are supposed to have as a continent. So we need to strengthen institutions. ECOWAS need to be strengthened. ECOWAS as a region, they need to strengthen that institution. The SADC region should be able to strengthen that that institution. Then we also have the United Nations, which now have SADC, ECOWAS, and other organizations, needs to be strengthened so that when they go to speak at forums such as the United Nations, they are heard. And when we say no, I think African countries should be ready to say no in unanimity. The fragmentation that we have seen, we saw it even in the case of Libya, where there were certain countries which voted with the Americans, and other countries were saying, no, that should not be done. If Africa had stood and spoken with one voice, what happened to Libya may not have happened, because Africa should be for Africans, and African problems should have African solutions. And we have that capacity here on Africa.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.